Hello and welcome to the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with talented hairstylists and makeup artists in the film and television industry. We'll pick their super creative brains and find out all the good stuff. Join me, your host, Jamie Lee, in finding out what's what in the hair and makeup departments around the world.
And now, our feature presentation.
Today, I'm speaking with hair designer Martin Samuel. Martin has worked on an amazing variety of projects, from Pink Floyd's The Wall to Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins to Pirates of the Caribbean to Evita with Madonna. Martin chats about training in salons in London, his work with David Bowie, and how important it is to have a strong, committed team with you on those massive projects.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Martin.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Now, I would like you to finish this sentence for me, okay?
Okay.
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Martin, and when he grew up, he wanted to be...
A hairstylist.
You did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I was like, used to come home from school and watch the Hollywood movies on television and look at all the glamorous women, the Lana Turners and the Rita Hayworths and the glamorous men with all their wonderful hair slicked back and, all that glamour and Busby Berkeley musicals, and just that whole thing was just like fascinating to me. And I kind of, didn't really, I wanted to be, I wanted to be part of it. I didn't quite know where, but the hair was always the thing that really wowed me. And so in those days, in England, you could do, it was early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. I got a job as a Saturday junior in a shop.
Okay.
And used to go there every week working. And then I was allowed to join model nights. And so, I started doing hair, as well as doing all the cleaning and all the, all those things you do when you're a Saturday junior. Okay. And gradually sort of, the guy that had the salon said, you were truly quite gifted. Just keep it going. So by the time I left school, he gave me a job at 15.
Oh, wow.
And I was on the floor by 16.
Nice. Did they have apprenticeships at that point, or?
Yes, they did. Yes. So it was an apprenticeship. Yeah. 3-year apprenticeship. But if you did it, I'd already practically done the apprenticeship by the time I left school at 15.
Yeah.
So, by 15 and a half, 16, I had a clientele.
Wow, that's awesome. And how did your parents feel about that?
Oh, well, they were delighted, absolutely delighted. My mother was always my biggest fan, and I would always, practice all the hairdos and the rollers and on her and her friends and my girlfriends and,
I love that.
all of that kind of stuff, And all the time, kind of everything was changing, It was the sort of 60s revolution in England. So the whole beginning of Carnaby Street and, Vidal Sassoon, who was my complete and utter mentor, Leonard, all these fabulous, Rosie Vansky, all these names I could mention, that people aren't aware of now, but they were all enormous salons, and all adventuring with fantastic hair, cutting and changing the whole face of fashion. Mary Quant, Twiggy, all of that whole, all the geometric stuff. It was all very, very innovative at the time. And of course, we were all free. We were all free to get out and go and do anything we wanted to. So
that's amazing. So it's pretty exciting.
It was a very exciting time. And, and so I kind of branched out. I left eventually, went into another salon, sort of upgraded. And then I went to work for a friend of mine called Alan McEwen, who had this amazing salon in the West End. And he had a clientele of show business people, very show busy. And so I kind of got into that. Also, it was the first time that they were sending out people to do hair on commercials.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Commercial industry has suddenly started to take off and become very, very interesting. The kind of commercials that were being made weren't just like run of the mill. There were all sorts of people like Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, Alan Parker, Hugh Hudson, Adrian Lyne, all these people had opened companies and were making these amazing commercials, from period to amazing stories, futuristic. I mean, it was just an amazing time. So he started sending out a team of people on commercials.
Oh,
so
wow.
I know. So I kind of got into that. Then I made a few contacts, and then I was waiting for a friend of mine who was opening a first unisex salon in London to open in Baker Street next to the Beatles store.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to join him as a creative director, which I did. And as well as being a creative director in the salon and building up the salon, my job was to go and do all the outside work with photographic advertising for the salon, hair, that is.
Yeah.
And so I got into the print world. So the print world was absolutely fascinating to me. Models, photographers that were all of the day, David Bailey, Duffy, Terence Donovan, all these amazing people. And what with the commercials and the print, I knew that I was on my way to getting into what I wanted to do, which was the film industry. And so more and more I was working on commercials, more and more I was working with amazing people, amazing makeup artists that are all trained at the BBC. And so I learnt and learnt and learnt on all these commercials because they were so intense, the content. You know, sometimes we'd have big period shoots, you know, all those wonderful Hovis commercials that Tony Scott and Ridley Scott did. So I learned a lot about period. I started learning a lot about period and watching lace being laid on and learning about wigs. And it was an incredible learning experience. And so I was quick to learn about research, about all those things. And so gradually I got into the film industry, and the directors that I was working with, like Alan Parker, was doing his first movie, and I got invited to join there. So that was the first thing that I did, which was a movie called No Hard Feelings. Yeah.
That's amazing. So that was your first full-time film.
Yeah. It was a television film, 1940s, very dramatic. And I went on to do a lot of movies with Alan Parker.
Yeah,
who
awesome.
Recently he passed away. But fantastic man. You know, some of my best work is with him. You know, Evita was amazing, and Pink Floyd The Wall was fantastic. So anyway, and then I got asked to do a film called Stardust with David Essex and Adam Faith and Larry Hagman.
Yeah, I had a bit of an excited moment, I have to say, when I was looking at your IMDb and I saw that you'd worked with David Essex. I was like, that's very cool.
he was so funny and so delightful and so gorgeous. I worked with him, used to do his hair a lot, you know, apart from that movie. But anyway, that movie was period intense of England at that time. And it was a lot of wigs and a lot of design, and it was fantastic. We were in England and came out to LA to do some location work, and shot in Los Angeles and shot in Florida, in Miami.
Okay. Wow.
So, you know, that was kind of like coming to LA was like, you know, well, this is it. You know, it was amazing. And my mother lived here, actually, funnily enough.
Oh, okay.
She'd remarried and she was living here. So I came here with my little son of 6 weeks old and my wife, Mary. And, you know, we had a fantastic time, met loads of people, and we said, oh, my God, that's it. We just want to go back. That's going to be our home, you know.
Where you want to be in Los Angeles. That's awesome. Fantastic. I was going to just go back and ask you about when you were learning to work with wigs. Was there one particular person that was kind of guiding you through that, or you were picking up bits and pieces from everybody?
I was kind of picking up lots of bits and pieces from everybody, you know, that I was working with. As I said, you know, I was working with this amazing different collection of makeup artists that are all BBC trained, because they didn't have men. BBC wouldn't take men.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they'd done their wig training through BBC.
They'd done their makeup and their hairstyling and their beard work and everything. Yeah. I mean, their training is so intense, as you know. Yeah. So I just learned. I watched, and they were willing to show me. So then there was this amazing wig place in London called, what's it called? Wig Creations. And Suzanne Stoke-Monkton, I don't know whether you've ever heard of her. She's a wonderful hairstylist. She worked there. She was a young girl. You know, we were all kids growing up. And we had a great relationship. And I would get my wigs from Wig Creations. And in those days, when you went and had, you know, chose a wig or wanted a wig for, say, 1792, you would get a wig beautifully dressed. And that's how they sent their work out. They didn't.
Oh, wow.
They had hairstylists in there. So that's just the way it worked. So working with her and getting these wigs and then keeping them into the styles that, when you had them out for a while, it would, you'd have to work on it. To keep it the way it was, and really, and learning about the lace and learning how to the application, and so that was my first introduction to being very involved in wig work.
Yeah, that's amazing that they would send them out pre-styled.
Oh yeah, no, that's the way it was always done. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. It was just the way it was. I mean, that's just the way it was. But I could jump ahead to some instant if you would like to hear it about that situation.
Absolutely.
On Pirates. So when I got, I was offered the Pirates of the Caribbean one, and I knew the content, which was so varied, of all the, period work. Apart from Johnny and apart from the design work of the pirates and all of that, there was so much in number one of period work, of the soldiers, the white wigs, the dark wigs, the glamour wigs for the women and the men, all of that period. And I knew that I could get all those wigs from London ready, styled, so that they would all come, and I had, started the film with 20 hairstylists. Yeah. Because we started all the background stuff. And so I wanted it all to be so simple for them that they wouldn't have to kind of create all this stuff. And also the cost of hiring wigs in London at that bulk price, at the bulk quantity that you wanted, was fractional to what, the wig situation is here in Los Angeles.
And especially starting from scratch.
Yeah. So I had like 300 wigs that I got from Wig Creations. At the time, they joined Berman's costume house by those years. Yeah. So they did a deal with me and Booth Production, and it was like beyond price. I'm not going to go into that, but and the producers allowed it to happen. I mean, it still came to a lot of money. Yeah. But, they were getting all this stuff. And I said, we'll use this, even when we break it down to use it for other stuff, how you do. Yeah. When we finished using it for this period, we'll use it for this and we'll use it for that. And we'll just carry this whole stock of wigs for the next 4 months.
That's amazing. I love that.
And that's how it worked. And all those hairstylists, I mean, we had like 2 weeks of training. And they just unpacked everything, and I went through everything, and and they were thrilled. They were it was so exciting for them. All these wonderful 706 hairstylists, they'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Opening these boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of these fabulous wigs all done, and sorting them out to the right background people, and then learning about what to do with them and how to keep them and how to change them. And it was a great learning experience for that whole crew.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm always a little disappointed in the lack of rental options in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, as I said to you, I was used to this other way. And so when I researched it here, it was like, oh my God, I got to do something. So, I went to where I knew and it worked. So
that's amazing.
I know it was actually, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Thinking about kind of, I guess, how everything works now, and when people are coming up and wanting to learn how to work with wigs, what advice would you give hairstylists?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of wonderful people, wonderful hairstylists that are so equipped in the knowledge of wig application, as we know. And the 706 do all these wonderful, showcase stuff and training stuff, which is invaluable to people wanting to see, watch and learn about it. The beauty schools these days, I think, offer a much higher training in that kind of stuff, and they bring all these specialists in. So, and then, obviously the practical side of it, of doing it, is invaluable. I mean, that's the way you really learn.
Yeah. It's that repetitive nature, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just by, doing it. But that's what the advice I always give is just to, watch and learn, go to as many seminars, as many learning situations about lace and about wigs and about periods and about application. And that's
just gathering as much knowledge as possible.
Gathering as much knowledge as possible and doing as much practical as you possibly can, because that's the only way you perfect it, really. Don't you think?
I think so.
I mean, I know so. That's my own experience. When you start, you're so nervous with the lace and the application and the wrapping and this and that, and so it's only by trial and error that you perfect that whole thing. And your eye. I mean, you've either got an eye for it, and wrapping the head so the shape of the head is still there, and working out if it's a man's wig or it's a toupee, or the best placing for the wrap, and so that you're going to get that lovely shape to it, which is always so important. I mean, how often do you see a great looking hairstyle wig on someone with a great bump at the back or something? Do you know what I mean? Where it's all gathered together at the bottom of the nape or something, where it hasn't been wrapped properly, which is so disappointing.
I know, you get that foundation right and you're away laughing.
Yeah.
I think too, it's great to work in crowd rooms where wigs they're not made for the background. They're not made for those artists, and they don't quite work. So you need to troubleshoot and figure things out. I think that really also helps.
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting onto a good, with a good hairstylist and good makeup artist on a film, that they're going to sort of have you down there first of all and train you up, show you exactly what they want doing and how they want it done, then that is fantastic in those big crowd rooms, And I've had more great experiences than I have had bad experiences with BG hairstylists. Because
that's good.
I mean, and I've been doing films here for the last, 20 odd years, 25 years. And I've had more good experience and less bad experience with people not knowing what they were doing.
That's brilliant.
I mean, 706 is amazing, amazing. And of course, I coming from England, I came from a very good situation about wigs, lace and period. My training was very intense. So when I came here, I had a good reputation, as being knowledgeable about lace and hair lace and stuff.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So when you were coming up, do you remember one piece of advice that someone may have given you at some point that has really stuck with you throughout the years?
The guy that I used to work for in that salon, when I was training, he was really quite ferocious. And really, I was a little, very small boy, and very kind of nervy and stuff like that. And it was like in those days, you would stay there till 8 o'clock at night, sweeping the hair and sorting out the pins from the hair and washing them for the next day. I mean, we're talking about a long, long time ago when all those things were happening. And I used to sometimes I'd go home crying. Yeah. And he'd just say to me, "You are going to be a great hairstylist one day. Never give up. I'm telling you." And he was a really great hairstylist, even though he had this salon in a local area. He'd come from Vidal's and he opened up the big Carita salon in London eventually. And, so that was he just drummed it into me.
He's just like, stick with it. It's going to happen.
Stick with it, just because you're going to make it. You've got a gift and you're going to use it, and, just keep going,
That's so cool that he could see that in you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was, because I was such a quick learner. It was amazing, and I knew that I was confident in doing. I mean, it was like, hair pieces. Once I got on to clients, everybody had hair pieces, and all those great big hairdos, and I loved it. And I'd knock them up in 5 minutes. Yeah. Beautiful French pleats and this and that. It was just amazing. I was gifted, and I appreciate the gift that I was given to be able to do this.
Yeah, in your element. And I think it says something as well, just that from such a young age, knowing exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So you could just completely dive into it without
Exactly. I
hesitation.
never thought, well, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? I didn't. I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. And then, I perfected all my cutting techniques, to the Vidal Sassoon methods. And so I was very proficient in cutting. I love cutting hair and still do, a lot of cutting privately as well as being on a movie and with celebrities and men and people.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very confident my cutting is really good. It's a good cut.
amazing.
I can give a good haircut, so.
I was going to just branching off from the hair cutting. Do you find that you approach a haircut on a wig differently than you do on somebody's head?
Oh, yeah, totally. And that was something to learn. I mean, that really was. I mean, that was like, where you cut someone's hair and you're checking the cut. Do you know what I mean? Picking it up, checking it and doing that. There's a very strong element of that in my haircut. So I had to kind of marry that into the fact that I'm dealing with a hair lace wig, or I might be dealing with a machine-made wig, which is even more difficult in some ways. So, and the hairlines and the way it's sewn. And so, you have to develop a technique that works.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Sometimes I can have a wig here in my studio that I'm preparing to get ready. I mean, in the past, this is how it's been a lot of, well, I'll cut it and always leave it much longer than I really want it, because I know that I'm going to go away and I'm going to go back in and I'm going to look at it and I say, no, that's not right. I got to cut this and got to go that. And then you've got your, your thinning shears, you've got your razor, you've got your, to take out, to get that balance and to get what you want done, whether it's contemporary or whether it's a beautiful period piece that you're going to actually set and make, even hide the cut in a way.
Yeah.
So that is an art, an absolute art. Cutting wigs is an art. And I watched a lot of people doing it, a lot of people here. I learned a lot from 706 hairdressers, I can assure you, being in LA. Things that I hadn't learned in England, because I'd had I'd been given these wigs all dressed. So, and keeping them up was not the same as starting them from scratch.
From scratch, absolutely.
So once I was starting to have wigs made here, with Renata and with these people and with those people and different fabulous wig makers, I was, it was coming from scratch, and I was having to learn and watch and use all my talents to make everything look fantastic.
I mean, I definitely approach wigs a lot more gentler than I do somebody's head, because I know that it's it's not going to grow back.
Once it's done, you can't hide it. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't hide anything, a mistake.
No.
So,
and I do really, I feel like I cut a wig completely different to how I cut somebody's hair on their head. And I don't remember anybody telling me that needed to be the case. It was just I think I'm quite a go through feel with my cutting. I'm not overly technically minded. I think I'm more of an organic kind of feel as I'm doing it. And I think that's kind of how I would approach wigs. It's just like, as you say, just that little bit and see how it's sitting, see what it's doing.
Absolutely.
And then go back in and just easy does it, little by little, you kind of get there.
Yeah, exactly. But the foundation of the cut comes from your initial learning of the cutting technique.
Absolutely.
That you've learned, that's in your brain, that pattern, the pattern of the cut and the way you're going to, and then you adapt it to whatever it is that your subject in the wig. So, but that's definitely right.
Yeah,
so,
you have that strong foundation, and then you go off from there.
Exactly.
Don't you?
It's the foundation. It's that cutting foundation, that pattern that works. And then you use it and alter it round and what have you. Yeah.
It's very cool.
And it's very, very gratifying. Very gratifying when it's done and you look at it. It's even more gratifying than... it's cutting someone's hair and then walking out the salon or walking out of your studio or walking out the trailer and them saying, I love it. I love it. I love how it looks. And it makes me feel so great. that's one thing that when I was always blown away by was the first thing, people would look in the mirror and say, oh my God, I feel so great. The first thing they'd say is before it even looks great, because the whole thing that what we do to people, we touch their heads and we alter we make them feel relaxed, and we're touching and moving all around them, and, touching their hair and making it, massaging their heads almost as we touch them. And then when it's finished product, I mean, they just love it. So
I know, it's a pretty good
It's a great feeling, to be able to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I wanted to just chat a little bit about your resume as well, of course, because it's pretty incredible. I can't go past The Man Who Fell to Earth.
What do you mean can't go past it?
Well, I can't go past us not talking about it.
Yeah.
We have to chat about it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask, did David Bowie come in with that hair colour, or was that something that was designed for the film?
Well, he had used the hair colour, I think, in the old days or a variation on that colour in his acts and in his various different things. So he kind of knew that he wanted me to get and bring with me to New Mexico the Igora colour, because that's what I can't remember the number of it, but it was an Igora tint. And he said, that's the colour I want you to bring. And so obviously I did. But it wasn't like that when we started, and so we did. He kind of, we did it together. He knew what he wanted, and we made it happen with the blonde, with the red and the blonde. Yeah, and then his hair was very different shape, obviously, very quiffy and all that. So, I did the haircut, and he loved it. He absolutely loved it, and it was a wonderful experience. That first meeting we had, and first doing the hair, the first time we did the hair color and
collaborating. I guess it's quite a collaboration.
It's always a collaboration. It's always got to be a collaboration. If you're working with someone like that, and of course there was the script, which was so intense, and there was Nicholas Roeg, who had talked to me about what he saw, and then there was the reference pictures that he'd seen from paintings of Icarus, falling from the sky and all that stuff. So all that worked into our discussions, the three of us. I would say the four of us, because Linda was involved, Linda Evita, who I'm not sure if you've ever come across. She's the most wonderful, wonderful makeup artist in England. And she was the department head makeup on the film. So, and she was the one that kind of found me, called, told Nick about me, because I was just new. I'd done Stardust and I was new on the circuit. So I suddenly had this phone call, from New Mexico. I was about to do this film with Alan Parker, Bugsy Malone, with all the wonderful, and it'd been going on for a very long time, and I'd been working for Alan, for years. And he said, but it was not greenlit. And I had this phone call from Linda in New Mexico, and she said, we met briefly, you're so-and-so and so-and-so, and I know that you would be perfect for this film for David Bowie, and would you consider it? And what are you going to do? I mean, I just...
yes.
I said, yes. And she said, well, we're going to get your script over and Nick's going to call you and da-da-da-da-da. And so that all happened very, very, very quickly, within like a day.
Wow.
And of course, I had to go in and see Alan and explain the situation to him. And he said, listen, this is an amazing opportunity. We're not greenlit. Yeah. We are going to go eventually. We don't know when. He said, please take this film. Yeah. We'll always be friends. And it's this will be fine. You just go off and do this amazing project. And so that's how that started. And I got on, they organized it. My son was 18 months old by that time, and Mary came with me, and we flew out to New Mexico and take it from there, and then, the Bowie look was collaboration with David and Nick and the alien character that we created. So it's timeless. I mean, I have so many compliments and so many almost fan base about that
hairstyle. Yeah. I have to say that I almost, when I'm looking at it, I feel that maybe Ginger Spice was inspired by that hair colour.
Yeah. I mean,
Spice
I'm sure.
Girls.
Yeah.
And then she had the orangey colour with the blonde streaks in the front.
Right. Oh, yes. It started a whole thing. And then, of course, the actual shooting of the movie and the being with David every day. And for all those months, being accepted into his entourage of, he didn't have an entourage as like everybody trooped around together. It was very, 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 very small, but he was just the best, and it was very intense, the shooting of the movie, and he was in a very intense state at that time, and we all know everything about David. We know about his drug habits, and we know about all this stuff, his incredible intelligentsia, so his moods and everything like that and the aspects of it, were very, very intense. And Candy, at the same time, I was creating all those looks for Candy Clark, all those amazing period looks, and then we had the special effects coming in to do all the alien stuff. So, and we were all involved in that, in a way, so in our own way. So it was an amazing shoot, and then we came to LA, finished off the work here, and then I went back to London because I hadn't yet moved to Los Angeles. Okay. But at the end of the LA shoot, David said to me, he said, please, I'd love it if you joined me on my station-to-station tour because I want to keep this whole look going and, this whole Man Who Fell to Earth look, and would you do it? And that was just like the icing on the cake. So, for the next so I had a break. And then the tour started up, and and off we went. Every few weeks I would fly off somewhere and do his hair and keep the colour going, keep the cut going, be backstage all the time. It was amazing.
That's very cool that he incorporated that into his tour for then, like when the film comes out, all these, it's a good idea.
Yeah, he was amazing and died too young, and quite extraordinary how his life turned out, but never to be forgotten.
Absolutely not. Oh my goodness.
Music is music, and everything is weirdness.
We love the weirdness. We love it.
The weirdness.
Now, keeping with the music theme, you've done quite a few projects that involve music somehow. So there's like Xanadu, where you've got singing, skating, dancing, and I'm sure a lot of sweating. I'm thinking, how do you stay on top of something like that?
That was fantastic, because that was kind of like really the culmination of my entire dream of coming to Hollywood and working on a Hollywood musical. That was just astounding.
Gene Kelly was in it. That's
Olivia, the whole thing was just amazing. Everything was filmed in Hollywood, and the amount of different kind of hairstyling that we did in the movie, with her and all the muses, and then all the punk people and all the models and all the 1940s sequence with Gene Kelly. It was a whole big design situation, a lot of hair color for all those punky, wonderful things that we did for all those dancers, working with those dancers every day. When you're working with dancers, it's like fantastic. Every day is like, it's so much fun. And once again, I had an enormous crew of hairstylists coming in and out. We shot everything in LA. We shot sound stages, Hollywood sound stages. Hollywood Center, not Hollywood Center. There was a studio down on Las Palmas, I think. I can't remember what it was called. And then the Pan Pacific, we shot a lot in there, and on location in Santa Monica. And amazing.
So, do you approach something like that differently for the dancers and things like that, just because they are going to be so active?
Yeah, obviously, of course. It was a big department. It was a big department head job. And I had I'd met Candy Connery. Do you remember? Have you ever heard of her? She was a wonderful hairstylist. She's not with us anymore. And she was my second. And, I was still pretty green, in LA. It was my first big film here because I just got all my days on a film called Coal Miner's Daughter, which we shot all in Kentucky, and all, Butcher's Hollow and all that stuff down there in the Grand Ole Opry. So really, doing Xanadu and being my first department head job here was a real challenge. But the years of 1979, 1980, 81 was so crazy, in LA, and anything, I was riding so high on my energy level, and each thing that was handed to me about the script, and these crazy producers, Joel Silver and Larry Gordon, they were the producers on the movie. And of course, they wanted everything to be such an extravaganza.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had a free hand. I had a total free hand. And the dancers all were very helpful, with keeping their hair right, coming in the morning. If I'd done it, if it would have been done the day before, they would make an effort to come in with it looking pretty much, together, and we wouldn't have that much to do on them. And once the colours had been done, but there were a lot of changes that we would make during the day. And then I was looking after Olivia, almost like a personal, as a personal. And so it was an amazing project. It really was. It was a 1 in a million project. It really was. Yeah.
And so other music ones you've been involved with too, can you tell me how you became involved with The Wall? I guess it's with Alan.
The Wall. Well, yeah. I mean, with Alan, he's very eclectic, with his filmmaking. And he approached me, and I'd just done a film with him here because I was still living here at the time, Shoot the Moon. So that kind of cemented our relationship back from me not doing Bugsy. So we were, that cemented our relationship back. And then I went back to England, not because of that, not because to do The Wall, because, we'd been here for 3 or 4 years, Mary and I, everything in the union, got into everything, got our green cards, I did some other beautiful movies with some lovely actresses here, worked in all the big studios, but somehow there was something missing in our lives, and we felt we needed to go back to England to get grounded. Yeah. Because we kind of lost ourselves in this kind of excitement that happened in 3 years that took over our whole lives. And we had 2 young children, and we had, even though we didn't have our home in London anymore, we had this house in the countryside that we'd kept, this kind of country cottage type place that we'd always said we want to live in one day. And we went back to England for the summer, for the kids' summer holidays, for 6 weeks. And we stayed there, and that's it. We said, we don't want to go back. We're not going back to Los Angeles. We're going to live here. We're going to stay in the country, and we're going to dedicate our lives to getting the kids in school and da-da-da-da-da-da. And so we did. But then I continued to do, Alan Parker then offered me the film. And so that was another mind-blowing situation.
Yeah, I was going to say, you seem to get wrapped up in these insane scripts.
So that was unbelievable that you were going to go to work and listen to playback for the Pink Floyd every day.
Wow.
Of this amazing situation and the amazing story and the amazing, the wall had just come down, and there was this cartoonist called Gerald Scarfe who did all the work on all the Scarfian characters within the movie that had to have all those weird hairdos. Yeah. So there was all that side of it, as well as all the period stuff and all the contemporary stuff that goes within the film, the flashbacks to the 1940s and, all that. And then the modern pop stuff that was going on. And then the Scarfian characters that would be played within the movie. So there was a lot of design work in that. And it was just another enormous challenge.
Absolutely. And I mean, were you a fan of Pink Floyd before you started?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they were, like David, Pink Floyd, and they were all there at the moment of the right time of our lives, because we were growing up with all this stuff and music videos were starting. And so all these imagery was coming through that was allowed, more imagery, more imagination, more imaginative stuff was coming through on the screens. And we were all getting so swept up in it, in that whole time. So,
and then Bob Geldof is in The Wall,
Bob
which
Geldof,
is amazing.
and all what went with him, and I mean, what it's like. You get so involved with these people and their lives, and all the people that are around them. Paula, his wife, and it was all a TV star, and it was just and working with Peter Frampton and Paul Englander, Barry Richardson, who was the second on the movie, and amazing. And just, as I said, going into work every day, listening to that soundtrack, playback, as we filmed was, you know, I mean,
It's pretty incredible.
pretty incredible. I mean, you just were swept away every day from, you know, you couldn't think about anything else at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then Alan Parker takes you to another musical
level.
situation with Evita.
Yeah. And, you know, when I worked with Alan, I had the most amazing confidence because he really, really loved me and really had such confidence in my work that he never really... We'd worked together for years and years and years on all these commercials, you know, the different types and different this and different periods. And so he was always left it to me to a degree. You know, he knew that I would work with the actor. He knew that, but it wasn't like somebody, he was never in my face with, well, can you change this and can you do this? And it was like, you know, it once he'd seen it was going to work, he was absolutely good with it. Just left me to it. Yeah. And so I was back in England and I was working back in the British film industry now, you know, after having this long hiatus in the country. And so I was back into that thing and he got in touch with me and he said, I'm going to do this film, Evita, which was, of course, one of my all-time favorites, you know, stage shows. I mean,
well, that's exciting to get told that then.
Yeah. And this was like at least 6 months before the film was to shoot. And he said, you know, I'm interviewing all these people and Meryl Streep and these Liza Minnelli and even Madonna wants to do it. And he said, I don't know, and this and that and the other. We had dinner, you know, and this is the conversation. He said, but whatever happens, he said, I want you to do the hair on the movie.
Yeah.
And I said, well, thanks, you know, amazing. Anyway, the way it turned out was that, you know, Madonna did do the movie. She pushed herself in. She wrote to Alan. She begged him to do it, that it was her thing to do, which it was, because she was perfect for it. And then, of course, he said to me, well, you know, now we have to get through that because she's going to want to have all her video people. And so this is a big battle that you're going to have to get through. And we're going to be laying down the tracks for the next 2.5 months. And so meet her. And I did. And she was adorable. And she accepted me. We went, you know, for that. And then he employed me right then and there, 2.5 months before. And I would have meetings with her when she wasn't, you know, doing the recordings, laying down the tracks, looking at old footage, trying out hairdos, practicing all the looks that we would be doing. She was very, very involved, very, very controlling, but good. And I, of course, had my technical side of it with the pieces that I was having made and the hair laces and the various different, you know, loads of different types of hair pieces, braids and this, and half wigs and hair lace wigs. And and at the same time, organising the enormousness of the department head, the hair department on this film, and crewing up with my crew who were amazing. And so, that's how that all came about. And then we started shooting in Pinewood and then went to Argentina.
Oh, wow. Cool.
For like 2.5 months. And everything intensified greatly, you know, with Madonna, because she was Madonna. And so every day was a challenge. Every day was a challenge for me, for the costume designer, for, you know, for everybody, really. I mean, she was just very different. She wasn't like your actress type. You know, she approached the whole thing very differently, coming from a music world. But she was amazing, you know. And then there was Antonio, and then there was, you know, Jonathan Pryce, and there was the family to take care of. And, you know, my crew were amazing, which came with me from England. So, you know, then we went to Budapest. By the time we got to Budapest, she discovered that she was pregnant. And so that changed everything with her mood swings and her way that she was. And, you know, and we shot that picture 6 days a week. And she was in every single scene.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Maybe she had like intense. 1 week off when we did all the Antonio war stuff on the streets of Budapest. So, and then we came back to England to finish off all the studio stuff, all the interiors. And of course, she was now had this little bump. So she couldn't wear all the little dresses. They all had to be let out. Everything had to be changed. It was a massive, massive design, keeping it going, nervous, on on it the whole time.
Yeah, wow. I mean, just everything from, Madonna to a period film to 6 days a week.
I'm working with her,
Yeah.
and dealing with her every day. It took me a long time to get over that. I was living and breathing for 2 months or so. In fact, till I saw the premiere, I was just living and breathing and worrying about every single thing that I'd done, how it was going to look. And because I did 52, she had 52 different hairstyles in that movie.
Wow, that's amazing.
And the way it all worked out. So anyway, that was fantastic. Yeah, it really was. And it did look beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's timeless. And she did a great job. She was perfect. She was Eva Peron. And she did a great job. She looked amazing. She thanked me so much. At the end, she said, this and that. I've been a bitch. I've been this. But, my hair looks gorgeous. Thank you. And that's all I wanted to hear. Because that's what we want. That's what we do. We want to hear. We don't want to hear that we've been a nice person to work with. We don't want to hear. I mean, what we want to know is that everything we did up there on the screen, we can be proud of and not cringe in our seats when we're looking at it.
Exactly.
That's where we come from. So well, I mean, it was massive, Jamie, because once we got to Argentina, we had 3 weeks of training. I had to find all these hairstylists to match. We had this great big warehouse where we had all the fittings. You know how it works with fittings with all the clothes and all the hundreds and hundreds of extras and all the singers and all these amazing people. And I had put a team together of hairstylists from England and from America that I'd met this wonderful girl. Her name was Rosa Beloga. And I'd met her on this other Alan Parker film that we'd done called The Road to Wellville. And I knew that she was going to be perfect to handle the background. So I got them to bring her over. And we had these amazing warehouse where we would have all these people come in, and then we had to find hairstylists in Argentina, people that worked in the theater. They weren't a film people per se, stylists, hairstylists, and we'd have to train them up to do everything we wanted them to do, and had all the wigs and boxes and boxes and boxes, and so that was an enormous undertaking.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, running around and getting Madonna, meeting with her and finishing up her looks and all the stuff that went with that. And then packing it up, going to Budapest, which had just come out of its Cold War situation. And there were no studios, all locked up, no hairstylists. So I had my crew and my background supervisor, and they all, she flew out ahead of time. And, we had already had searching out for resumes of hairstylists that did opera, that did theatre, that did salon work. And we got the people together eventually, and they were fantastic. And they even opened up one of the studios and allowed me to go in there and look at all the hair that hadn't been used for years and take stuff that we could use. Because that's where we did the enormous crowd scenes of the funeral with thousands of extras, and they weren't CGI'd. Yeah. So, we had at least 2,000 people in the church and the whole thing. And, so, it was, and then back to Pinewood. Yeah.
So when you're heading a department for a film that is on a scale like that, what do you think are some of the necessary skills that you have to actually, just make all of what you've said happen?
Yeah. First of all, you've got to have the backup. You've got to have picked your team that is going to be with you. Apart from what you've researched about the project, which was, in this particular case, it was up there on stage. It was drummed into my mind, the pictures, the hairdos, the whole aesthetics of the look of the thing. So apart from all the variations of how Alan was going to shoot it, but the most important thing is to get your crew together. And once you've got your crew together and you're secure about that, then you can all work together to get the thing together, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And then, I did the same system with the wigs. We had a stock of wigs from Wig Creations and Berman's of 300 or 400 wigs that we carried with us for the last 8 months. And so being prepared in those ways on that particular movie was vital. I had the backup of Alan, which was always so relaxed. I didn't have to kind of be freaking out about production at all. in those days. You didn't freak out about production that much in those days when you were working with directors and producers that you knew, that trusted you and that had brought you in for that specific project. Yeah. I mean, she was my biggest anxiety because the nature of who she was and what she expected and how she approached the situation. Yeah. So, but I was confident with my crew. We'd worked out all the family, the looks, the background, my background supervisor. So everything it was amazing how it just flowed. It did. It really flowed quite well. You know, I mean, there was a lot of anxieties, but
it's a big gig.
Yeah, but basically, that's it. If you've got to have a crew that you trust, that trust you, that you've worked with, that you know, that into the project like it's in their blood, and are going to make it work, and they'll be with you for the duration. Which, in that sense of the word, everything worked out great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I think it just. Yeah, you can sleep at night knowing that you've got a team that have your back, and that if you might forget something, they're going to pick it up.
But traveling with the everything one needed in the way of hair is kind of like a big boon. I mean, that you've got all that sort of fixed. It's all going to be changed. It's all going to be changed for different scenes and different looks, but it's all there. Do you know what I mean? You're not sort of thinking, oh my God, I've got to run around and find this and that and the other. You've got all that, stock that you're taking with you of hair.
So organisational skills for sure.
For sure. And,
planning.
And then, you only learn by trial and error. And, and I was and excitement. And this excitement of being this challenge was, fantastic.
Yeah. So I think it definitely does help to be passionate about your work, doesn't it, to get through something as big as that.
It. I mean, if you're not, then forget it.
Yeah.
Go back and work behind a chair or something.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. So with Hitchcock and Love and Mercy, with recreating actual historical figures, or not even historical, Brian Wilson.
So a lot of biopics, yes.
I was just going to ask how you approach that type of project. So with the recreation of actual people, living people, or past.
Obviously getting as much reference on them, which is all out there because they're famous people. So, you can grab whatever you need about the way they looked, and then working it into the actor that you're working with, what you need to make that look work. So, I mean...
Because it's not always doing it exactly, is it? Because it may not work.
Exactly. I mean, with Helen Mirren for Hitchcock, her character of Alma, his wife, with that red hair and that sort of rather strange haircut that she had in the 50s, late 40s and 50s. And 60s and 70s. So, and Helen is very knowledgeable about wigs and playing characters. So I worked a lot with her, on creating it how she wanted it to suit her face, which was a lot of cutting. I had all her wigs made in London. And, I mean, I wasn't in London, but had her wigs made in London by Alex Roos. Fantastic wig maker. Yeah. I don't know whether you know her. Always made a lot of wigs for me as well in London.
Yeah, I've hired a few wigs from her.
She made all Madonna stuff for me. Yeah, and so from that score, but working with Helen on that film, and then obviously the Anthony Hopkins recreation was down to Howard Berger and his team, and my contribution of the hair to get that completely right with him. But that was a lot of time spent testing that look,
that balance right, isn't it?
As you know, with prosthetics, it starts off in a very, very, let's say, heavier way, and then starts to kind of strip off slightly. And that's a decision from the producers and the director, and that's also a decision from the actor, how he feels under all that stuff. And then, Scarlett, working with Scarlett, getting her wigs ready to play the Janet Leigh thing was a joy. I mean, I was so excited, to be working with Scarlett Johansson and to be creating this period look for her. And Jessica Biel, creating the looks for her. So a lot of research, background research. Once again, a good team of people I had. My friend was the director, Sasha Gervasi, and he had absolute trust in me. So that was cool. But the producers were very intense and many, they wanted to see so many different variations on everything. So in that sense of the word, it was quite challenging from the producers and the executive producers' point of view, which is kind of getting to your question about the difference in today's filming and how it used to be done, with the interference of the studio and how they want or how they think they want their actors and actresses to look.
So many more people having an opinion.
Exactly.
That they need to get in there now, don't they?
Exactly.
It's like a committee.
Options, but they don't want to pay for it. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But we got some great results, and it looked beautiful, and everybody was very, very happy, as they always are, in the end. And you
By the end,
and you end up doing what you first started to do in the first place.
Funny.
Because you're copying what the character looked like, and you're making some subtle changes because you're working with the actress and making everything nice for her and making her feel comfortable, but you're basically keeping to that look that you want to copy.
It is funny that you can go full circle like that.
Yeah.
So you've been personal for a few actors over the years, like Johnny Depp, Penelope Cruz, Jennifer Aniston. So what do you think is important to remember when you're in that position?
Well, you're, first of all, from the film point of view, is to blend them into the film so that your work isn't standing out as something different to what the story's going on and the way that the department head is approaching it with all the other characters in the movie. But you are kind of very involved with your actor and your personal side of things, that they want to have it certain ways. So you have to kind of find that happy balance with them, that you're going to make it look, marry it into the look of the movie as well. From the hairstyling point of view, that is. Yeah. From the storytelling point of view. But, I mean, I loved working with Penelope. I mean, she was just a dream to work with. And first met her on Blow, and that's when I first met Johnny, even though I wasn't looking after him at that point. It was V, and Candy would be his personals. And from then on, I had a great relationship with Penelope and would travel the whole world. I mean, not just to do movies, but we did so many, commercials in Madrid and places and different stuff. And Sahara we did in Morocco, and a lot of Spanish movies. So I had a very varied time with her. A lot of Cannes film festivals, very glamorous traveling with. It's very glamorous traveling as a personal. It is far more glamorous, and you travel in style, and it's all very nice, and and you have that wonderful relationship. I mean, after Pirates 1, Johnny asked me to be his personal on Secret Window in Montreal. Patty York was the makeup artist. It was an amazing time of being with Johnny, learning about him and being, around him all the time in his whole world, even though we've been around together on Pirates very intensely. Once again, it's always an honor to have worked with someone and then to them to say, will you come and be my personal? Yeah. So that's great. It's giving you feel that they want you. Do you know what I mean? That they like you and they want you around. So that's great. But it's just part of our job, isn't it? I mean, you've been a personal and you've been a department head, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, it's like if you can keep the two things going, some people just want to be a personal. They don't want to be bothered by being a department head. Yeah. And I think that's a shame, because they're missing out on a tremendous challenge within the film world and within their craft. Yeah.
I think it's nice to have that variety.
It's so nice to have that variety, yeah. But it can be a pain because, you're always on call.
Yeah.
And
when are you going to go to the bathroom?
Exactly. Always on call. And production are on your back as well, about this and that and the other. So, but I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being personal, but I love being a department head. I mean, when you are a department head and you're working something like like Evita, for instance, well, I was a personal for Madonna. So I had to juggle. That's why you need that incredible team of people that you've sorted everything out, and you're, that you can be secure that when you're locked up in her personal trailer and with her for 12 to 14 or 16 hours a day, and you can go to the set and know that when you get there, everything looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, I'm always involved. As soon as I get there, I'm looking around and I'm checking everything and checking this and checking that and checking the other. But basically, it's always good,
Yeah,
because
just having that peace of mind so you can get on with what you need to get on.
Exactly. So, on Xanadu, I mean, I was like personal with Olivia, so.
And do you find, like, while you were working with Madonna doing that, did you find that she was, like, consciously aware of the fact that you had an entire production that you were heading, not only looking after her? Because I think sometimes it can be forgotten. Do you know what I mean?
I love that question, especially with her. I mean, no.
Yeah.
No, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was about her. And, I mean, the time that it would take to get her out of the trailer, not just from my point of view, all the jewelry, the options was her favorite word.
Right.
So whatever she'd been decided was going to be worn. And as I said, she had 52 different hairstyles, so many different hats, so much different jewelry, so many different outfits. And what they put out the night before, she would change the next morning. So, I mean, it was like, no, to answer your question, no, I don't think she was aware that.
I think that can just be a little frustrating at times, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, she expected to walk on the set, and that the whole thing was ready to go, which it was, because that's the way Alan worked. So,
awesome.
There's amazing scenes with all the opera singers and everything that we would go on and on, doing take after take. And she'd just come in, she'd sit down, and then the whole thing would happen. Wow. And she'd blend into it.
That's awesome.
And she was perfect. She knew her stuff, and everything just flowed. But it's the director, it comes from the top. And he was one of the most amazing directors. He knew every scene. He knew every way he was going to cut it before he was going to shoot it. And he was a brilliant. I
think that can really make your job a lot easier.
Exactly.
When you have someone.
Well, if you're working with, if you're working with someone like Michael Bay, or who they don't know really what they're looking for until they see it. Yeah. So you shoot 5,000 takes.
It's tricky.
It's tricky. Anybody that will tell you that they've worked on all those movies with all those kinds of directors, just very, very challenging.
Yeah, I think it's one of the first things that I will notice and just have gratitude for is when I notice the director, has a clear vision and they know what they want. And it's like, this is going to be great. Okay, good.
Yeah. But I've worked on the other ones as well, where you're there till 5 a.m.
Still working it out.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I mean, it's a form of art, so everyone does things differently. Yeah,
and then the whole approach, to Pirates was pretty amazing. I mean, that was phenomenal. That really was. So,
well, I mean, you were setting. Did the first one? You said.
Yeah.
So you're setting that up for, and I worked on the last one. I feel like if you haven't done a Pirates film, like you've been hiding under a rock.
Right. Well, I did the trilogy, 1, 2, and 3 with Gore Verbinski, who once again is a director that knew exactly what he wanted. And, all the research. I mean, I was also asked to do that film at least 5 months before we started production. Nice. And I was able to get my crew together. Fantastic crew from here. Lucia Mace was my second, and she was brilliant. Amazing. Penny Rose, the costume designer who I'd worked with for years in England. And so there were a lot of good stuff already that we all felt good about. Yeah. And it was, it was done in the old Hollywood way, in a kind of thing. It was just before production had started to get really heavy. So, we had all the great stuff. We had all the great warehouses where we would have all the great fittings and the clothes and the wigs and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the design of all the pirates, all the crazy looking pirates. A lot of the cast were all from England. The creation of Kira, of her, her character. I first met Kira when she was 16 in London at a pub because I was in England. And she said, Gore got me to go and meet with her.
Yeah.
And we, came here and we changed her hair color. We added extensions. We did a whole thing to create her Elizabeth Swann character for that first one.
Wow, she's a baby.
And and then the creation of the Captain Jack wig, which was the crowning glory of that movie. Really was amazing the way that happened. Yeah, because I never had any real input from Johnny, until like 2 days or 3 days. He never came in for his fittings. He had some fittings for costume in remote places where he was, but we'd never really gone into it. And I just knew that from Gore and from Penny that he had this image of sort of braids and beads and maybe a headscarf or this and that and the other.
Yeah.
And so I started putting together, I had some wigs, lots of different wigs of my own that, I kind of put together. And having worked with him, I knew about his hair. So I kind of put this wig together, this 3/4 wig, and we added lots of braids and beads and hanging things and a few dreadlocks. And he came in and I put the wig, V was there and she'd worked out his little beard and stuff like that. She had a fantastic bead box and we got it together. And he came in and he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I just put this together. I think it's kind of maybe on the road to what we think you might like. And Penny had bought me a hat in and a headscarf. Yeah. And so I put this 3/4 wig on him and just the scarf. And he said, oh my God, he said, how did you know that something like this was going to work? I mean, this is amazing. We can work on this. And so from that point, he collaborated on adding more beads and on adding more bits and pieces here and sorting out a different bead that he loved to get in place something that I'd put there or whatever. But I did design the initial kind of design for it, and then we took it further. And cool. And then it became further and further as we went along from 2 to 3. We added more length, this and that. So that was the most amazing experience.
Absolutely. I would say that the pirates I did was probably a lot more tame than maybe what you were doing, because we only had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 days where we literally shot on water.
Right.
Everything else was on ships, on gimbals.
Right. Yeah, Well, on Australia, I can imagine. But on Pirates 1, 2 and 3, I mean, we were all over the Caribbean. We lived in the Bahamas for 7 months.
Yeah.
We were evacuated twice from hurricanes. I mean, it was the most incredible experience, most incredible 4 years of my life. And in the middle of that, I did a film with Kira Domino, where she played this amazing, I don't know if you've ever seen it, Tony Scott movie with short blonde hair, fighter.
Wow.
She was a kind of street fighting girl. So, and then putting her back to Elizabeth Swann for the 2 and 3. So it was an amazing 4 years, pirate years, really special.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone knows Pirates of the Caribbean, don't they?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So over the years, working in this industry, what would you like to see more of in our line of work going into the future?
Well, I think that what we have going on at the moment is very, 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 very strong production value on TV. The storylines and the production value, the makeup and hair that is put out there is of the highest quality. It really is. So, and the streaming and the stuff that you see on the, Netflix and Amazon and all that kind of stuff is such high quality. I'd love to see it go back into cinema.
Yeah.
We're in a completely different situation at the moment. Obviously, as there are no movies, there are no cinemas. So everything we see is on TV. But, I'm hopeful that it's going to go back up on the big screen and everything's going to be fantastic, again. So, I mean, the direction, I think it's just going to get more intense as time goes on because it has become so intense. And people are so on top of their work. Makeup and hairstylists and prosthetics are so on top. I'm working on this, we're working on in the middle of, because we're closed down because of the pandemic, but this project called Angeline, about this wonderful woman, Angeline. She was just a notorious woman that lived in LA, still lives in LA, and had this most amazing life. You either know about her or you don't. So it's an amazing recreation of her from the 60s right the way through, well, actually from the 50s right the way through to the present day. So it's a tremendous amount of period work and prosthetic work, which is amazing.
Yeah, I spoke to Vincent van Dyke, and he mentioned, you're doing it with Kate Biscoe.
Kate Biscoe is a department head makeup who is amazing.
Yeah.
I've never worked with anyone quite like her before. Her organization skills, apart from her techniques and her amazing makeup work, just fantastic. You know, every time you work with people, you know, great people, you learn so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Even after 45 years of working in the industry, working on Angeline and working with Kate has taught me so much more about various organizing skills and production stuff to do with our craft. And obviously working with Vincent and watching the amazing prosthetics that they've been doing on Emmy Rossum and other characters has been incredible. I sincerely hope that we're able to finish it. So
I think you will.
But that's TV. That's a television thing. Yeah, it's a Peacock.
And just briefly, she did. To sum it up, did she kind of become well known and famous through promoting herself?
Yes,
like putting herself on billboards.
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
And is she's still driving around LA
in
her pink
little car? She's still driving around LA, and she's still selling all her stuff out the back of her car at 75 years old. And so we've gone to that age in the movie.
Wow.
So we've shot a lot of that stuff, you know, and she did a lot of stuff to her body, you know, with enlarging her breasts and altering her whole shape and her face and plastic surgery, which we've recreated in every single way, and these enormous hairdos. So I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to finish it, you know, and get it out there on the screen. They want to, but because it's just the nature of the film is so on the street, we just cannot shoot it until things have quietened down. We can't go shooting on a soundstage. It just won't work. We have to do it where it's supposed to be done. So, that's that.
Well, that's something to look forward to, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask everybody this. So if you were set up at work in your trailer and I was to take one tool or product away from you, what would you not want me to take? What would you be like, no, I just don't want to do my job without that?
Well, obviously, my scissors.
Okay.
Because I love my hair cutting.
Yeah.
But my daily, usage would be my selection of Mason Pearson brushes.
Okay. Beautiful.
From the babies to the big ones to all the different. I love using those brushes, and I find
your go-to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I imagine with all the period work you've done as well, they've been invaluable.
Yeah, and for contemporary, I mean, as well. I will always try and finish off a blow dry with a Mason Pearson brush.
Yeah.
Because it just gives that shine to the hair after you've kind of stretched it all out and done whatever you had to do to it with a round brush or this or that, the other. I always think, just that smoothing it out with various product or whatever and using a Mason Pearson at the end with a dryer always gives it that lovely kind of sheen.
What do you think it is about the Mason Pearson that does that?
Well, it's just the way that it's the bristle, the mixtures of the bristles, the different types of the brushes, the different types of way it's been made.
Just that quality, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And now, Martin, who would you like to hear on the podcast?
Well, there's a number of people, obviously, always. I think I'd like to hear V. Neal. I love V, and she has had and still has such an amazing career and of work that, varied that, I'd love to listen to V go through it all. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Martin. It's been amazing.
Great. Well, I'm pleased and I'm very honoured that you asked me. So that I joined the other people that I saw the names of. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, darling. Thank you so much.
For links to see more about our guests, go to our Instagram at The Last Looks Podcast or our website, thelastlookspodcast.com. If you want to keep up with new episodes being released, be sure to subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, or any podcast streaming platform. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, share it. The Last Looks podcast would like to thank Brett Stanley and Sabrina Castro. The song Fun Time by DJ Quads. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
That's a wrap, people.